Yep, it worked.
You got it? Okay,
Yep.
so we can go ahead.
All right. I pledge allegiance to the
To the
flag
of
of the
the United States of
America
America and to the republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible,
with liberty
and
and
justice
justice
for all.
all.
Thank you all. Public comment. Does any of the public, since I don't have Jean handy dandy, are there any public comments of those public who are here?
There's no text here.
Okay, I am going to move along now to item 6.01, which is the consent agenda. Okay, let me move and see if I can get this to move with me. Okay, minutes of the 11th, the 2nd, and the 5th. Donation for Healthier Generation Grant, School Resource Officer extended through the summer, and School Resource Officer for 21-22. Okay, I need a motion. Carol, Tony, thank you. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, does anyone have any questions? No? All those in favor? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you all very much. Now I'm moving down to item 701, the Claims Audit Report. This is an action item also, so I need a motion, please, from somebody. Kathy, thank you. Sue Horton, thank you very much. Okay, now any questions on the claims, the infamous Claims Audit Report? Oh, I'm sorry, it was just informational. I had the wrong one up. Okay,
Also,
nobody has a question on this? We're all fine?
Jean is having technical problems. She's taking notes in my office, okay?
Good enough. Sounds great. Okay. On to the treasurer's report, and this is an action item. So I need a motion. Do I have a motion from anyone? Linda, thank you, and Sue, thank you. All those, any questions on the treasurer's report? Okay. All those in favor, show of hands, please. Okay, unanimous, thank you. And now we have the treasurer's report for May. I'm sorry, the first one was for April, and the second one is for May. Again, I need a motion. Kathy, thank you. Linda, thank you. Questions? All those in favor? A show of hands. This is for the May treasurer's report. Thank you all.
Before you go into this item, Linda, this is where Susan has a short presentation on the reserve funds.
Right.
So Susan, do you want to share your screen?
Yep. Okay. So just to give everybody, did I unmute myself? Yes, good. A little refresher on reserves. So the BOCES, as you know, has a variety of reserve funds. Whenever we are using reserve funds or recommending that the board consider establishing a reserve fund, we obviously assess the need, and I'll talk a little bit about the various reserves and why we have them and why they're needed. We always establish and utilize reserves with the proper approval. So reserves need to be board approved. When money is put into a reserve, we need board approval. And when we need to take money from the reserve to pay for a BOCES obligation, we also need board approval to do so. And you are going to act on a few of those recommendations in a little bit on your agenda. We recommend, and we have followed this practice, that we we fund reserves on a gradual basis, and we demonstrate use. I think the best example of that is our compensated absences reserve. The official title for that on your agenda is the Employee Benefit Accrued Liability Reserve. But as all of you know, we have contractual agreements with our employees at all levels of the organization, and those agreements call for the BOCES to pay for certain items like vacation time accruals and sick time accruals. and those expenses add up over time. So the reason we have this compensated absence reserve is so that in a year where we have 17 people retire, and we did have that a couple years ago, we have the funds to pay for those employee benefits. And we're, for BOCES in particular, our goal is to make sure that our rates to our districts don't have peaks and valleys. So we use the reserve so that we can stabilize. And in a year that we do have a lot of people leave the organization, we're not creating a hardship to our component school districts. So as I mentioned, I think that the compensated absences, otherwise known as the employee benefits accrued liability, is a true example of a reserve that we fund and we utilize often. And as I mentioned, it's used to pay for accrued benefits that are available to employees when they resign or retire from our organization. And it's basically sick leave, accrued sick leave, and vacation leave. You can't, and I put in parentheses there, like in a year where somebody's entitled to like the retirement incentive in the first year that they're eligible, that wouldn't be something that we could pay out of the reserve. It's only for those compensated absences that actually are accrued time. Several years ago, we created the ERS and TRS retirement contribution reserve. That's obviously used to pay our share of both ERS and TRS contributions. There are some parameters with all of these reserves in terms of limits on how we can fund them and formularies in regards to calculations that we have to do when we make recommendations. So in this particular case, it has to be 2% of the total TRS member salaries can be contributed in any 1 year. And there are maximums, so you can't exceed 10% of the total compensation of our TRS members. And we're not up there, but there are rules, like I said, attached to each one of these reserves. The unemployment reserve is used to pay for unemployment claim expenses. For those of you who have been around, sometimes our service participation and when we've had constraints with state aid and districts have made cuts, like back in like 2008, 2010, I think we had some layoffs, unfortunately, because of shifts in service participation. So when we experience those, kind of like in the cycle of life, because sometimes that happens, that's when we would go to our unemployment reserve. The CTE equipment reserve, that's something we started a few years ago as well. It's basically used to purchase large items of equipment. It doesn't actually have to be technologically advanced equipment, but that's the language that's used in the reserve. Some of it is tech related, some of it is not. Although I think technology is really connected to everything. You can't go to the auto body shop anymore without them plugging your car into a computer to be diagnosed. So you have to get SED approval for anything that we purchase over $5,000. And obviously you can't use it for anything that's less than $1,000, not that we would, that would really come out of your general fund, your CTE budget. And there is a maximum limit of 10% of the CTE budget each year in terms of a contribution that can be made to that particular reserve. We also have a liability reserve, or we're actually recommending that we have a liability reserve, I'm sorry. We found out that BOCES is eligible for a liability reserve, and this would be used to pay for liability claims. So any kind of settlement to avoid litigation, any kind of credit monitoring because of any data compromise that were to occur. The Child Victims Act is something that would also apply here, and any other kind of similar uses. This particular reserve cannot be funded by more than 3% of your annual general fund budget. And so that's something that the board is going to be asked to act on later in the agenda, and that is a new reserve. And that basically summarizes the reserves that the BOCES either currently has or is recommending that the board consider. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Susan, the liability reserve, clearly we have liability insurance. How does the reserve fund and our insurance policy, how are they coordinated?
So you couldn't ask your insurance company to pay a settlement. So if you were in a hearing situation and you wanted to settle instead of continue with that particular case, that wouldn't be something that we would be able to put in a claim for in regards to our liability insurance, which we have through NYSER in regards to them paying for that. There are some limits and there are also some deductibles and responsibilities that the district or the BOCES has to pay out first. So in any given year, depending upon your budget and the resources that you had in the general fund, you would be able to use this reserve to pay the BOCES share, deductibles, that kind of stuff in regards to liabilities that would occur. And then the Child Victims Act, we haven't had any claims. There are districts throughout the state that, are starting to see some of those claims come forward. And again, it would be to help offset anything that the BOCES had to come up with first prior to insurance kicking in and covering a claim.
We would not be able to use the reserve funds to pay our annual liability premium.
That is correct.
Thank you, Susan.
Any other questions?
Very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. So now I am moving, I apologize, I lost it, employee benefits, accrued liability, good. 8, personnel matters, 8.01. I think you all have had an opportunity to see this. It is an action item, so I need a motion.
Mrs. Berkowitz, you need to go
Yes.
back to 704 and you have to vote on 04, 05, 06, and 07.
I stand corrected.
I'm
We have to
sorry.
vote on each of them separately.
Yes, I apologize.
Okay, I need a motion for 704, increased funding for CTE. Anthony and Carol Park, thank you both very much. Any question? Well, I'm not going to keep saying that because we had our opportunities. So all those in favor, please, a show of hands. Jean, it's unanimous. Thank you again. 7.05, increased funding for TRS Retirement Contribution Reserve Sub-Fund Authorization. I need a motion. Sue, Ken, thank you very much. All those in favor? Once again, Carol Liefernick, did you agree to that? Did you raise a hand? Thank you. Just want to be sure. Increase fund 7.05, increased funding for TRS Retirement Contribution Reserve Sub-Fund Authorization. Again, I need a motion. Ken, thank you. Sue, thank you. All those in favor? A show of hands. Thank you all. And finally, 7.07, approval to establish a liability reserve fund. Carol and Ken, thank you.
I think we missed one.
I missed the 706,
Get
I
all of
think.
them?
No,
Yeah.
we're to 705.
705 is the one you missed, Linda.
Well, we're gonna finish,
Oh,
people, I don't know what the noises are, but we're gonna finish the vote on 707 first. You all by show of hands,
706.
707, thank you very much. And I skipped 705.
no,
Increase-
706.
Thank you, that's what I thought. Increase employee benefits accrued liability reserve authorization action 7.06. Tony, thank you. Linda, thank you. All those in favor? A show of hands. Thank you all very much. Now, we're going to go on to personnel matters and I need a motion before we can discuss it. Carol Liefernick, thank you. I need a second. Linda, thank you. Okay. Do I hear any questions or discussions about this? Everybody is fine with this.
I have a question. Are
Thank
the summer school teachers already employed by us? It seemed
Some
like there were a
are.
lot of emergency.
Right. Some are, and some are employed by other school districts. Some of them may be fresh out of school. We're pulling from all corners to staff our summer programs. So we are competing with all of the component school districts. They've received a significant amount of federal funding. Part of that funding mandated they create summer programs. So we have school districts that have never had a summer program before that are running a summer program. And they're taking our employees who normally work for us and
I
employing.
wondered.
So Carol,
So, yeah, we're having, We're
Question.
having quite a time with it, Carol.
There are many more new hires, Carol, than have been in the past. It's typically the same staff or our own staff year after year, so there are a lot more new this year.
Notice that.
And I hope you all noticed that we also had 2 addendums to it. Both personnel. I don't know if everybody saw that.
Yep.
Okay, both of them, great. That's important. Because that's what we're voting on, all 3. So, may I have a show of hands approving the personnel matters? Thank you. Again, unanimous. 9.01, approval of proposed settlement agreement action. I need a,
Does this need to be read into the record? No. No, okay.
I need a motion. Ken, second by Carol Liefernick, thank you very much. All those in favor, because we've had lots of discussion. So I'm just going to ask you to raise your hand. Unanimous. Please remember, Jean, you don't know this, but Tony left the meeting at the beginning of the financial matters. Okay? So, oh no, I'm sorry. He left it just before personnel matters. I apologize. You're right. Okay. So we have approved the settlement agreement. Authorization 9.02, authorization to expend the employee benefits accrued liability reserve action and discussion. We just
Did that.
didn't we do this a minute ago?
Just put money
We
into
funded
it.
it.
No,
We didn't
no, we didn't actually.
Yes.
This is actually expending it for 7 individuals who are leaving our organization as of 6/30/2021.
Okay. Thank you very much for that clarification. I need a motion for this one to discuss it even. Linda and Carol, thank you. Discussion? Everybody's fine with it? Okay, we funded it. Now we're going to spend it. A show of hands, please. Thank you. Remember, Anthony is gone. Okay, 9.03, approval of 21-22 salaries for management confidential and mid-level managers. This is an action item. I need a motion. Ken, Carol Park, thank you very much. I think we have gone over these contracts. Anyone have any questions they wish to ask? Show of hands, all those who agree to it. Okay, once again, it's unanimous for those of us who are here. 9.04, approval of senior management terms and conditions, deputy superintendent, executive director of finance, operations director of HR, and the director of curriculum and instructional support services. I need a motion. Carol Park and Ken, thank you. Questions? All those in favor, show of hands, please. Thank you all. Unanimous again. A 9.05, authorization for the district superintendent to serve as a member of the countywide shared services panel. I need a motion and then we'll discuss. Okay. Sue, thank you. Second, Linda, thank you. Discussion. Bob, you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, a couple of years back when the tax cap legislation went into effect, municipalities were required to create bodies to study cost efficiencies in shared services. I actually participated in this several years ago with Sullivan County, but this time around, rather than asking the superintendents to sit in the audience and comment, they're asking us to be part of the panel itself. Panel meets every couple of years. They sit down, discuss cost efficiency, shared services, and the like, and they make recommendations. Many of the recommendations are not plausible. Many of them are the county is not really interested in doing, but they are required to have this entity, and they've asked all of the superintendents in the county to serve on it. And if they did wish to serve on it, they required a motion from their board to do so. So that's what this is.
And this expires December 31st of 2021.
Yes.
Okay. So that is the motion, and now we need a vote. Anyone have any questions for Bob on that? Sorry, I should have asked that. Okay, we need a vote. Everyone in favor? Thank you all very much.
My computer.
Award solid waste removal bid. I need a motion again, please. Ken, thank you. Kathy, thank you. Kathy, I have to move you so I can see you. I didn't see you down there. I'm sorry. Anyone have any questions about this one? Raise show of hands. All those in favor, please. Unanimous again. Okay. Now we're down to administrative reports. 10.01, 5-year strategic goal presentation.
So before we get into that, can you please call Maria in her office? No, call her on my phone.
Okay.
Maria did not jump into the meeting in the confusion with Jean's computer, so we just want to get her in, and there she is. So 2 things. First and foremost, our July 13th reorg meeting will be held at the administrative offices and conference center in person. We are planning to hold it in the Neversink room. We do not know whether or not Zoom meetings will be permissible any longer. They may. If they are, we will hold the meeting in person and also offer it by Zoom. But we need to start getting back together as a group, and we need to start having these conversations. The only thing hanging out there is a possibility that the legislature is permitting the use of Zoom meetings for the duration of the emergency declaration of the pandemic. And I believe at some point today or tomorrow, the governor is going to declare this over because 70% of the people in New York State have received at least 1 vaccination. So I don't know if they're going to rescind that emergency declaration soon or not, but we'd like to start having meetings again in person. It will give everyone an opportunity because many of you have not seen the offices and conference center since we opened them a year ago. So that is our intent and plan for the July meeting. The other thing, I'm going to try to share my screen. I'm not good at this. So I'm going to try it first. And this one or that one?
I would go, this one is the actual PowerPoint. That's what you want.
All right, so let me do this and hit share. And please tell me you all see that presentation on the screen in front of you.
We do. Well, I do.
Okay.
Yep.
So
you see it.
no, I got it on my computer here. That's not a problem. So
Okay.
view, and we want to, how do I start this silly thing? Hold on. View.
It'll be up in the upper right-hand corner.
There we go. I got
Got
it from beginning. So everyone should see the first slide, right? Strategic goal setting, 5-year accomplishments and aspirational goals. So we had discussed that the board wanted to create a strategic plan, and we're going to use a methodology called strategic goal setting. And setting strategic goals can have a significant impact on the success and productivity of your team. Strategic goals influence how and where a team's energy and resources are used. They also provide the team with concrete objectives that will keep them focused and motivated. Examples of the benefits of strategic goals: defining priorities, guiding resource allocation, direction and directing the creation and maintenance of budgets, influencing the formation of teams, providing focus and motivation for employees, informing the objectives of marketing, public relations, and human resource departments, and providing comprehensive data used to measure a team's results. We had spoke in one of our recent workshops that we would focus on using SMART goals, and SMART goals are specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. The goal of tonight's presentation is to give you a general overview of where we were and where we're going as a BOCES. And what we're recommending is that we establish goals in each of these key areas: management services, facilities, instructional programming, instructional support services, communications, community engagement, diversity, equity, and inclusivity. If you notice, each of these areas represent one of the key programming and service aspects of Sullivan BOCES. The newest one here is diversity, equity, and inclusivity. The Board of Regents have asked school districts across the state to start doing work in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusivity. So what have we done? What would we like to do? So 5-year review of our accomplishments and thoughts on our aspirational goals. And I want to thank Jen, Keith, Susan, Vicki, Maria, and Natasha for working to help bring this presentation together. Donna Hemmer contributed, and Jean kind of handled most of the editing to bring it together into a cohesive presentation. Our first area is management services. So some of the accomplishments in management services over the past 5 years. Central Business Office, increasing the number of participating districts, migrated districts to the new WinCap platform, continue to assist districts with meeting new mandates, work with districts to restructure shared HVAC and electrician services, increased internal tech department projects, the complete rewiring of RPEC, started a wireless upgrade at RPEC, created a shared human resource coordinator service, introduced HR service to reduce and eliminate paper. That would be the Talent Ed program. BOCES eliminated paper in human resource office by streamlining employee applications, FMLA paperwork, all through Talent Ed. On the horizon, some of the things the management services team wants to focus on. Completing of the wireless upgrade at RPEC, expanding our shared human resource coordination and shared director services, establishing a long-range staffing plan and increasing participation in professional development to build staff capacity. If anyone has any questions, just chime in as I'm going along, please. Facilities projects. So over the last five years, we've renovated and relocated the central administration to a new ADA compliant facility. We installed an 8-unit modular classroom building that is known as the GMOD. We replaced the D and E wing roofs. We completed generator repairs and upgrades. We completed the CTE bus loop upgrade and AgMech site work. We increased O&M internal project capacity, doing a lot of the work in-house that our staff is capable of doing, in particular the E-wing entrance and the RPEC sidewalk repairs. Facilities work on the horizon. We are planning on an RPEC boiler replacement. It's time. RPEC roof replacement, the A, B, and C wings and site work. AgMech HVAC replacement. Central admin conference room divider. When we moved in here, we have the larger of the conference rooms for those of you that have been here, and it has been our intent to put a dividing wall so we can use it as 2 smaller rooms at the same time. Internal projects, replace carpet floors with tile in the RPEC offices, and some of this work is underway now. LED lighting upgrades, ceiling tile replacement, AgMech entrance repairs, sidewalk and paving upgrades, window replacements, update CTE shops with industry standard equipment, and provide more PE and classroom space at RPEC. And the classroom space and the PE space is tied to our winding down of the use of the White Sulphur Springs building. Any questions? Instructional programs. Instructional programs, we improve program safety. Less incidents, less severe. Improve the student intake process. Created a robust PBIS team. Started curriculum mapping and unit planning and ITAP CAP and at White Sulphur. CTE design and implementation of new programs. We just rolled out a broadcasting and music production program and our welding program, which started several years ago. Instituted child study teams. Health OC programs moved to Garnet Health Catskill. Public safety, innovative design, and other programs were moved to SUNY Sullivan. We created 2 community gardens, one at White Sulphur Springs and one at RPEC. Improved behavior intervention process, training and team approach. Improvements to FBA BIP procedures countywide, and implementation of MTSS and SEL frameworks.
Stop right there. What is the MTSS and SEL frameworks, please?
Multiple tiered systems of support and social and emotional learning.
Thank you.
Okay. Instructional programs, future aspirations, continue curriculum work, revisions to curriculum maps, unit plan build out, ABA, and VBM APP. Maria, you'll have to help me with that. I'm not sure what the second acronym is. The first one is applied behavioral analysis.
Right, VBMAP, and I don't know what the letters stand for exactly either, but it's a progression of language development for students who are nonverbal, autistic.
Thank you.
Continue developing MTSS SEL framework practices in all programs, integrate PBIS, child study team, and MTSS to create overall team to address academic behavior tiered interventions. Data efficiency, use, and implementation. Continue work-based learning and community relationships with industry partners, and continue adding college credit options for CTE programs at SUNY Sullivan. Questions? Instructional support services. We hired 2 school improvement specialists, math and ELA countywide. A scholastic arts program, arts and education, we've expanded that. Cross-county reading challenge, increasing independent reading, a very successful program run by our school library service. Support of technology integration and online teaching. ISS was instrumental in providing this training support to get us through the pandemic for our staff. Support of districts in the rollout of the next generation learning standards. You had heard quite a bit about this pre-pandemic. It was not paused, it was not put on hold, but other priorities shifted during the pandemic, and we're still rolling out the standards. Reinstituted our countywide conference day and established a countywide administrative retreat. Started diversity, equity, and inclusivity and social emotional learning work. Leveraged social media to shift from traditional modes of communication, and developed additional professional learning communities and collaborative forums. Going forward, focus on leadership and capacity building for all levels of administrators, coaches, and teacher leaders. Continue work on standards implementation and curriculum development. Continue to bring new ideas and support districts in reimagining school and learning as we emerge from the pandemic. And finally, provide more countywide data analysis and visualizations to inform leadership and curriculum discussions and decision-making. Okay.
Can I ask a question about that last one? Maria, I guess I'll probably direct some of this to you. It's a problem of how we're going to deal with bringing kids up to where they need to be. I mean, we've virtually lost a year with most of our kids. I mean, the best of the best situations were just awful. And now we're looking at, oh, we're moving ahead. Well, are we moving ahead with some plans to pull these kids back and pull them back up? It's got to be hard.
Yes, it's not easy. I would say each district is doing it slightly differently, but I think it's important to remember that students have always learned at different rates. Yes, they have lost a year of school, but students have always worked at different rates, and the way we've dealt with it in the past is the same way we have to deal with it now, is meet them where they are and move them ahead as quickly and efficiently as we can. Just always remembering that students, as I said, learn at different rates. And I know in some of the districts, they're looking at creating, I don't want to say multi-age classrooms, but several days a week, splitting grade levels up and having students work on creating like targeted skills groups where students can work on particular skills that they maybe didn't get over the pandemic. The other thing is that some students, you know, it's just one little piece that they missed, and then once they get that, they can jump right ahead. So the other work that we're doing is looking at, they're called bridge documents, looking at what was required in 4th grade and what's required in 5th grade, and seeing how those, rather than having to teach all of 4th grade over, seeing how those integrate with what is going to be taught in 5th grade. So there might be just a little bit of catching up, some skills that need to be introduced or reinforced, and looking to where those can be integrated into the 5th grade work or the work of the grade level ahead. So there's a lot to be done. There's a lot of discussion about it, and that's where we're going to really start looking at data as well, and seeing, you know, where we can identify skills that need to be reinforced or just completely retaught.
Do you think we'll be able to do some sort of an analysis of where our kids are at mid-year and be able to look at where we had anticipated on a normal year they would be, and do anything with that data besides have it?
That's always the issue, right? We have data, and doing something with it is important. I don't know. That's a good question. We do benchmarking every year. We always have. It's not new to the pandemic, where we take, you know, a measure of where students are in September or October, and then measure it again at the end of the year with a mid-year benchmark in January. So I hesitate to say, yes, we absolutely can, but that is work that has been ongoing even pre-pandemic. So we always do take those mid-year measures. How we can compare to what students might have been in the past,
Tough.
we'll see. It's a good idea and a good
Just curious at that point.
project to think about.
You know, we've been hearing so much on the news about what different places are doing. Some of it good, some of it sounding a little draconian, but there have been some good plans put out there in terms of, you know, how we're dividing students up and what they'll be doing, who'll be, you know, in small groups, as you were saying. I mean, some of your ideas I think are wonderful. Thank you for the explanation. I really appreciate it. It's been heavy, it's weighed heavy on my mind what we're going to do for our kids.
So I do want to throw something out that one of our district superintendents brought up a while back, is that while, you know, we definitely have more students struggling than we ever have, in some districts there are more honors students than they've ever had as well. So, which is a bright spot in many ways.
That is.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you, Maria. Thank you very much. I like the way you ended that.
Moving on to communications. So some of the things that we've done in the communications department over the past couple of years. BOCES, logo development and rebranding. And all of you were involved in that process, as were students, faculty, and staff, on selecting a new logo for Sullivan BOCES. New BOCES ADA compliant website. BOCES News and Notes biweekly newsletter. BOCES Edge quarterly magazine. The CTE recruitment video that is created every year highlighting our CTE programs. Liaison for community initiatives for school districts. Sullivan BOCES was at the forefront of coordinating the vaccination efforts of our faculty and staff, as well as our students throughout the late winter and early spring, working with public health. Refine the message system integration. That's our robocall system. The Sullivan County Democrat School Scene BOCES feature. Social media management. Hootsuite, which is a social media management tool. Statewide BOCES Well Day. A couple of years back, when the representation in our legislature changed over and a lot of the veteran legislatures retired. The New York State BOCES Association created something called BOCES in the Well. And all of the BOCES around the state go up to Albany on one day and set up and highlight one of our programs for all of our assembly men and women and senators and their staffs to see what it is a BOCES does. And we are doing it again in 2022 from what I've been told. 5-year objectives: adjust the layout of the website, adjust and change the mobile app to make it more engaging for students and parents, fix student data uploads for the messaging system. This has been a dream of Susan's, and I know she's diligently working on it, a digital sign for RPEC. Increase communications and engagement with parents, increase communication and engagement with school districts and community, increase language customization into our communication system for our parents do not speak English, increase openness of internal communications, and update marketing materials, methods to improve engagement and experience. Appearance. And finally, community engagement. These are just some of the things that we've worked on over the past couple of years, and some of the things that Sullivan BOCES is involved with community-wide. The adult English as a second language community training. That program is currently on hiatus because of the pandemic, but we had on-site programs in Liberty, Monticello, and Fallsburg, and it is our hope to reestablish those programs as soon as schools are fully reopened. We have extensive works and dealings with Cornell Cooperative Extension. We helped facilitate the COVID-19 Task Force Vaccination Survey. We participate in the legislative providers meeting, which are coordinated and run by Assemblywoman Aileen Gunther. We are active in the mobile classroom partnership with Assemblywoman Gunther, Sullivan 180, and Rolling V Transportation. Now with the pandemic winding down, the mobile classroom is becoming a mobile office over the summer for the office for the aging for the Sullivan County government. It's becoming a mobile office for Sullivan County public health social service providers. So even though it is not being used during the summer for pandemic-related purposes, it will be used by our community partners. We are a member and an active participant in the Sullivan County Chamber of Commerce, a member and active participant of the Sullivan County Partnership for Economic Development, Sullivan County School Boards Association, the Sullivan County Visitors Association, New Hope Community, which is a strategic partner of ours in programming for our students, Sullivan 180 Community Advisory Board, and the Healthier Generations Program for our school districts. We actively work with Prasad Mobile Dental Clinic. As I mentioned earlier, pandemic collaboration and coordination with Sullivan County Public Health. We are actively engaged with Sullivan Renaissance. And we also participated along with Ulster in creating the ESSA, that's the successor to the No Child Succeed Act community forums. Diversity, equity, and inclusivity. That should be equity, not equality. Team training on MTSS, SEL, by the Mid-Hudson Regional Partnership. Developed our reopening plan that included goals and objectives for SEL and MTSS, work that needed to be accomplished. Raised consciousness of DEI through implementing of the DEI Roundtable. Last summer, we had a group of volunteers throughout Sullivan BOCES meet, and they've been meeting, they've had 7 meetings during this past year where they sit and they talk about difficult topics on diversity, equity, and inclusivity. We implemented community circles as part of the restorative practices work in our schools, getting kids to sit down who have done something wrong and discuss how they feel, what they did, and what they can do to correct it. Improved behavior intervention process, improvements to the FBA and BIP procedures. FBA is functional behavioral assessment and BIP is behavior intervention plans. We provided DEI workshops for our superintendent conference days. These were optional workshops that our staff could choose to attend. Some of them addressed very sensitive and touchy topics on race and many other issues, and they were some of our best attended workshops on our conference days. We provided ISS workshops focusing on DEI, families as partners, SEL, and students with disabilities. Going forward, our DEI workshops will be included on each one of our upcoming conference days. We'll continue to develop MTSS and SEL frameworks, practices in all of our programs. We will continue with professional learning communities, i.e. the DEI roundtable focused on DEI topics, expanding the community circles and restorative justice. As a board, we've been asked by the Board of Regents to develop a policy on diversity, equity, and inclusivity. So Gina and I are working with School Boards Association and our own policy service to get drafts of sample policies so that the board can adopt a policy during the course of this year. And if anything, that minimally needs to be the board's goal for this coming year under diversity, equity, and inclusivity. Provide support and leadership to BOCES and the component districts to work toward heightened competence in DEI, create a shared vision mission that includes DEI as an integrated component of all work done at Sullivan BOCES, and establish safe and inclusive spaces for all students, faculty, and staff. Finally, any questions from anyone?
That was a lot to digest.
I just have a question about, one of the things you mentioned was retreats for administrators or combined retreat.
Yeah,
Did that happen already?
Administrative retreat.
Yeah. You don't have to go back to it. I just
No, I'm going back to something else while you talk.
Oh, okay. I was curious about it. That's all.
Okay, so a couple of years back, I explored the idea, because every one of the districts has an administrative retreat for their own administrators at some point over the summer. I explored the idea with the superintendents if they would like us to try and coordinate a countywide administrative retreat. So the first one we held was in the summer of 2019, and it was held at the Ritchie Barn on the property for the Center for Discovery. And we had 85 administrators from all over the county participate in a series of day-long workshops.
Wow.
And we were planning to do one last year, but COVID got in the way, and our superintendents are committed to continuing it. And this year we're using the concept of a unconference. And basically, the attendees tell us what it is they want to do and what it is they want to talk about. And we used something called the Thought Exchange, which allows people to share their ideas anonymously. And the software helps us to group the ideas together to establish patterns. And Maria, do you want to touch on some of the items that they had indicated they wanted to speak about this summer?
Yeah, so first and foremost, which probably is not a surprise to anybody, is, how do we help support students through the learning loss that they experienced or the schooling loss that they experienced over the pandemic? How do we catch students up? How do we, exactly what I was talking about, how do we integrate skills that should have been learned into skills that are going to be learned this year in the new grade level? So that's going to be part of the conversation. We had the most suggestions, or the most people asking for work around diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Good.
So we are going to be doing work around that. We have a tentatively a keynote speaker from NICEAD, Dr. Anil Alston, who is Assistant Commissioner for, I can't remember exactly the name of the office, but
He has about 14 names in his title.
yeah, but basically diversity, equity, and inclusion. So he'll be coming to speak with us. And you know, some of the other topics were not as, there weren't as many people that were interested in that, but I think they're really important. One of them is recruiting and maintaining highly qualified staff members. You know, we're everyone around the county and around the state really is struggling with hiring right now, especially for summer school, but in general. So some of that, and there are a few other less popular topics, which I don't remember off the top of my head. But
Great. I mean, that's a lot of information. I appreciate knowing this. And I'm glad we're doing it. I'm glad we initiated it, and I'm glad we're working on it. Very important area.
So at this time, what I'd like to do, these are the areas that we touched on in the presentation: management services, facilities, instructional programs, instructional support services, communications, community engagement, diversity, equity, and inclusivity. And I'm looking for a general consensus from the board that they'd like to go forward with setting goals in these areas, or if they have other areas that they wish to set goals in, if they would share that with us. And I'm going to unshare my screen so we can see each other.
You've kind of hit us that I think some of us might like a little time to think about some of this.
Okay.
I think it's a very big list.
It is.
For 1 year goals would be, or is it 5 year goals?
Well, these goals could be 1 year, 1 month, or multi-year.
Okay, because it's just an overwhelming listing. I mean, you got everything in there, but what do we tackle and what do we, but yet I'm not sure we should take time because we got to get moving on this, some of this stuff.
Well, I would appreciate, Bob, if you would at least get that last slide out to everybody. It might be a good way to get us.
That's in the library already. The presentation's in the library.
Okay, we're not used to, nobody told us that this presentation was in the library. And I have to tell you,
Agenda.
I tried opening it and I couldn't hear.
Okay, I have
This
it.
PPTX format, I was not able to get it open. So listening to you was the
So
first.
that means you don't have
actually
PowerPoint on your computer probably, or the version of PowerPoint, because that's a PowerPoint extension.
Yeah, no. So I really just heard it for the first time because I do tend to read everything.
I endorse and concur with what people have said so far. There's a huge amount of information here. I'd like to chew on it before we move ahead. Some other questions, Bob. Who all was involved in the development of this? Were teachers involved? Were non-instructional folks involved?
Ken, we're just starting the process. These are recommendations.
This is just the beginning.
This is
Okay.
the beginning. These are recommendations that came from the natural silos of the businesses and services we provide. Okay, so they're focused on the key areas of our BOCES.
I think that this requires some real thought and discussion on the part of the board and of central administration and others. This is important stuff.
Follow-up plan to this, Ken, is once you establish the categories, we're going to be doing in-depth work over the next several board meetings, setting the goals. That's where the heavy discussion is going to come in. So all I'm looking for is a general consensus that this is the direction we want to go in, that these are the areas we'd like to start with. We might wind up dropping some of them as we go through this, or we may wind up adding them. But
Bob, I'm sorry, but I'm going to say it again. I want a little time, as Ken does, and I don't know about anyone else, I want a little time to rethink this and see this. This was a tremendous amount of information. Goal setting has been very important to us, and I need to digest it. I cannot say that I agree to this just like that.
This sounds like a workshop day to me.
Oh,
Does.
absolutely.
Yes, it does.
Very good idea.
That's right, Carol.
Jean can send it out as a PDF to those people like myself who were not able to get this open.
Yes, and I would start with that. If each of us as board members could receive that entire thing. But then I like Carol's idea. This is the stuff of a full day of discussion and thought, group
I
thought.
think that's an excellent idea. Get it to us ahead of time. Let's set a date. We can even set that date now. Make it soon. And because I know you guys want to get rolling with this. And that's how I think we're going to handle it. If that's
No, it's not that we want to get rolling with this. This is what you asked of us.
Yeah.
This is what you asked of me to
Give
do.
us what we just asked. Let's set a date and let's go with it. Is that fine with everybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. So let's create a date. I'll have Jean send out some, Bob, let her see your schedule, Susan's schedule, Maria's schedule. Let's put it together and see if we can get 2 or 3 dates out there and have everybody agree on them and do it sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
Okay. Everybody's fine with that?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Nice presentation, though. Any board member comments? We're at the end here on 11.01. Board member comments. I'm going to go around my screen. Carol Bliefernick, you would be first.
No, just as I begin to think about that whole list, I just want to put out there that half that list was already what they've accomplished. And that needs to be filtered out from what we need to go forward. In our heads even. I'm just saying ahead of receiving it, that a lot of the accomplishments are there, but the goals that we're going to be working on are a smaller part of it. That's all. And thank you. This was a good meeting all the way around. Loved it.
Linda?
I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Sue?
Good.
Ken?
Good.
Okay. Carol?
I just want to say that that I appreciate the presentation, Bob, and I think that legwork was awesome, and to a recap of what has been done and certainly a basis for where we can go forward. And I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
Nice. Kathy?
I concur.
Thank you all. Well, then I am going to, if nobody else has anything they want to add, subtract or whatever, I am going to ask Kathy to make a motion
to adjourn the meeting.
And I need a second.
And
Thank you,
those of us who are staying for the audit committee, just stay on.
Yeah, I have that question too.
Yeah. Can we take a 10-minute break?
Jean, wasn't it a different link or did I get that wrong? I thought I got a separate email from
I
you.
actually think it's a separate link.
It was a separate.
It was a separate link.
Well,
I think so.
Let's take 5-minute break and we'll get back together.
It's the same.
Oh,
link.
it's the same link, Jean?
Same
Okay.
link.
Oh, it's the same link? So we
Hi,
can stay here.
everyone.
We
All
can
right,
stay here.
so
on and come back in a few minutes.
Righto.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Are you guys going off, Linda?